Hello, welcome back to Modes Made Easy. We've had a few weeks off here. This week is going to be big. This week and next week, really. We're talking about basically major chord progressions this week, and we're talking about basically minor chord progressions next week. Now, what we did last week is we talked about... I am getting no sound. Just a second here. There we go. We talked about chords and progressions in the context of the key transposition table, which let's bring that up real quick. And we determined that our basically major modal progressions are going to occur off of modes based off of the 1, the 4, and the 5 of a typical major scale harmony. That means that Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian are going to be your basically major keys because they have a major 1. So if we're basing something off of Lydian, and this is just a review from last time because it's been a little bit, if we're going to play in C Lydian, we need to find where C is the 4 of a parent key. So by using the key transposition table, we would go down, we'd find where is C the 4. Okay, C is the 4 of G. So we're going to use G major's harmony, chordal harmony, but we're going to start on C, which gives us any Lydian. But in C Lydian, we have C major, so major 1, major 2 of D major, minor 3, E minor, diminished 4, or the avoid, which is 4. And we have a 1 of G, we have a 5 of G, a 6 of A minor, and a 7 of B minor. So this is really interesting. If we look at, and we're just using this as an example, we're going to get into many more here shortly. If we look at C Lydian, we've got some things that are similar to C Ionian. For example, we have C major to A minor, or a major 1 to a minor 6. That's very much Ionian until you do this. That subtle change. So what we did is we did C, A minor, so major 1, minor 6, major 2. Ignore that last note. And there's a lot of other different ways that we can slice it in every mode. So today we're going to be doing just this. We're going to be looking at each basically major mode and coming up with a bunch of basic major chord progressions. Basically major chord progressions, although they will be modal. And you're going to start going, oh, I've heard that before, or I've heard something like that. And you're going to start realizing how common simple modal playing is. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to record some of these progressions. And then we're going to start reacting to them with our ears. Primarily, we're not going to get too far into really going crazy with improv, because this week is basically about the chord progressions and then also being able to identify with your ear the key tones over those progressions. Once you can do that, you take the patterns that you've worked on both in this course and in the last in Fretboard Roadmap, and you're really able to do some damage playing modally. So before we dive in, we're gonna pick up right here with C Lydian. Before we dive into the tracks and making our own chord progression, we're going to review the tracks from Fretboard Roadmap. We didn't talk about the chord progressions, what made them tick before. We just did it, and then I had you play over it. But we're going to talk a little bit about the theory. So we're going to review those tracks, and then we're going to get into building our own tracks. But even before we do that, since it's been a little bit, are there any comments or questions before we get into reviewing the tracks from Fretboard Roadmap?
I do have a comment here.
Okay.
It might pertain to what you're about to talk about.
Okay.
This is from Spider Cap. Hi, Chris. Is it possible to provide more information on the backing tracks as the course progresses? Can you provide Guitar Pro files of the backing tracks along with other practice files? Guitar Pro would be optimal, but even the chart would help my understanding of what I'm playing over and why.
Spider Cap, very good question, or comment, or both. I have intentionally not provided transcriptions of the backing tracks for this reason. I want you to use your ear. Most of playing modally is about hearing something and then going, oh, I know how to react to that. If you're looking at transcriptions, you're being told what to do. You're being told essentially what mode to use because you can go, oh, that goes from C to D, C major to D major, and I can see what key it's in and what parent. I want you to do that all with your ear using the tools that we've been discussing in this course and in Fretboard Roadmap. So a lot of what we're talking about is very ear training centric. So I provided transcriptions, of course, of the modes. I provided several charts that help you go from point A to point B, like the, let's see here, what's it called? The key signature chart, the key transposition table, and of course the major scale harmony. If you get those down, if you can memorize those and memorize the theory behind them, you're going to be able to, at the end of this course, you won't need transcriptions of any backing track, ever. You'll be able to listen to it a couple times through, which is exactly what we're getting ready to do. I'm going to walk you through the backing tracks that we used in Fretboard Roadmap, and I'm going to show you the process for figuring things out. So that's what I have to say to that. If transcription is provided, then there is less ear work for everybody to do, and I want there to be that ear work, and I want to guide you through how to do that because I want you to be able to do this stuff for yourself when you're listening to not just a backing track, but when you're listening to when someone has an original song that they presented to you and they want you to add something to it. They may not even have a chart, but you immediately can listen to it. Oh, I know what to do. Or you're listening to something on your phone or on the radio or whatever. I want you to be able to stop and listen to the chord progression and go, oh, wow, that's in Lydian. Cool. That's what we're training for.
That's it for now.
Okay. All right, here's our first track. This is from Fretboard Roadmap. We're just going to take it from the beginning. I am not going to tell you which track it is, although some of you will recognize it. That track, that note went up, down. Major there, major there. See if it does anything else here in a little bit. not sure it does. That might be it. All right, so we have a major chord, clearly the major 1, going to another major chord. We just talked about this. This is Lydian. A very simple Lydian example. All right, so we're in C Lydian. We just covered this one. If we go to our key transposition table, we're in C Lydian. C is the 4th mode. We are in the parent key of G. So if we're going to react to this backing track, we're going to use the key of G. That means that any 3 on a string scale played from G is going to work. Listen to how this sounds. Sorry. So I just blew through, with absolutely zero style and many mistakes, I blew through the first 3 patterns of the 3 on a string scale from Fretboard Roadmap. And I could keep doing that over that track. But that is not musical. It works. We want to shift our thinking, and this is all about what we've been doing here. We want to focus, just like the track is, on our tonal center and our key tones. So if we've got C Lydian, what do we remember from a few weeks ago? Lydian's key tone is that sharp 4. The major 7 really adds a nice sound in there, and then of course 1. So let's go C, and we could easily take this 3 in a string scale position. We could take that, but let's be more intelligent about it. Where's our 4? Where's our sharp 4? There's our sharp 4. Okay, so it's right there and here. So let's, as we play through it, 1. There's our 4. Where's our 7? Right there. So our 4 and our 7 and our 1, those are the money notes in Lydian. If we can phrase around those notes, we're golden. Let's take it one step further. Now that we've identified those notes in this particular scale, we can identify them in any scale. You remember when we were taking the pentatonics, we add the 4. Add the 7. You can do it that way. We're using these patterns as merely a tool, a starting point. What we really want to be able to do is hear the note in our head before we play it, and then react to what we're hearing here, as opposed to letting the scale determine what we're going to play. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to try to sing the 4. First I'm going to sing the 1. There's 1, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 4, 4, screwed that up. I sung a 5 and I said 4. 1, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1, 4. Sharp 4. 1, 4. I'm just gonna hum that. Hear how it goes against the chord progression. Play a 1. There's the 7. Okay. So what I did is I recognized that it was in Lydian, and then I'm training my ear to go to that key tone. And then I'm sort of forgetting about the fact that I have all these notes available and I'll play Lydian scale. And I'm zeroing in on the tone, on the key sound that makes the mode work. This is what's going to make you much more melodic. Let me demonstrate. You can sing it, you can play it. Sorry. There's a couple of wrong notes in there, but that's going to happen. The point I'm trying to make is, and we're going to keep going with this, different examples, is that you're thinking melody first, you're thinking key tones first, and then you use the scale, you recognize where that note is in the context of the scale to embellish upon that very simple melody. But it starts in your ear, and your voice is a fantastic conduit for making sure that you don't just go directly to a scale pattern and practice scales all day. So, there's the first track, and there's how we're going to be dealing with our ears and being creative in the context of what we've done so far. Any questions or comments before we go on to the next track?
We have no questions or comments at the moment.
Okay. Here's our next track. There's our 1. Okay, so it's a major 1 to a major 4. That went up a whole step from that last chord, so that's a major 5. Went back down to major 4. 1. See what happens. 5, 4, 1. Four, 1, 4, 5, 4, 1, 5, 4. Okay. Key transposition table. What mode has a major 1, a major 4, and a major 5? There's only one. It's Ionian. This is how we're determining what we need to play. Could you play another mode over this? Well, you might be able to get away with playing Mixolydian some, but it's not going to sound great. It's Ionian. So in terms of approaching improvising over Ionian, it should be pretty easy, right? There's no really key tones that you want to do, other than the major third. Major third's great. Thinking in triads is great. So if we're thinking in the 1, the 3, and the 5, those are great sort of bedrock notes. Let's play it again and let's just sing the 1, the 3, and the 5. And let's see if we could even sing like the 1, the 3, and the 5 over the other chords in the progression too. 4. The 1, 3, 5, 4. 5. We have a leak. Looks like we might have a leak coming from the roof. Weird. Yeah, I just got a drop of water on my guitar. I don't think I drooled on it. I didn't see any drool coming. I don't feel any drool coming out of my mouth. Oh, that could be. Could be. Yeah, maybe it was a water bottle. That's okay. We're good. No, it wasn't too much water. Okay, 1, 1, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. We're playing triads. We're just gonna see how that feels. We're in G. What was that? I went to the 5, so we're gonna play. So there's kind of an example of taking something that you know will work, 1, 3, and 5 over each chord, but emphasizing those notes in a way, once I sort of got into it, I started using this transition of these two triads in a way that was kind of different. I was using the 5 triad over the 1, and I was going back and forth and then landing on key notes that made it work. So you can be really inspired when you intentionally take the keytones or the notes, just a couple notes, and force yourself to make a melody out of it. That's where the keytones are so helpful in a modal setting. Because this one isn't modal, I guess it's technically modal, but it's Ionian, we had to sort of pull something out of thin air. But this is the way you want to react when you're playing modally as well. Let's go to our third track. One. Mixolydian, emphasizing the key tones major third and flat 7. There's some, and in this demonstration, which is actually easier for me now, I just went all over the place using the scale patterns, the 300-string scale patterns and pentatonic shapes that I've been practicing for years. And it's actually easier for me now not to bracket myself. It's a harder thing, and it's harder for a lot of people who know all the patterns to say, you're going to stay here and actually make stuff sound good. But that's where we need to start, which is what I did on the other two. You pick a few notes, or one area on the guitar, and you hone in on those key tones. If we listen here, da, 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 there's a third, da, 7, 7, 7, 7, 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 7, 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 1, 7, 1, 7, 1, 3, 5, 1, 7, 1, 7, 1, 3, 1, 5, 1, 5, 7, 1, 5, 7, 1, 5, 7, 1. Even that, so much more catchy than just... One, three. It's really easy with Mixolydian and Dorian to just kind of lose yourself in them because they just have such a cool, unique sound. Okay, so I think I've made my point. We want to, once we realize what's going on in the chord progression, we want to identify our parent key, but then more importantly, we want to identify our key tones. The parent key is what's going to give us the scale positions to draw our positioning from, but then we really want to hone in on the key tones and sort of forget about the fact that we've got a position. We want to work on hearing the notes, and singing is a huge part of that. So with that, we can now transition to making up our own progressions in the basically major key. And I think we started to make one up before. Let's go back to the key transposition table. And are there any comments before we get into this? Are you guys finding this beneficial?
We do have a couple comments, questions, if you want to take those now.
Yeah, let's do that now, and then we'll get into making up our own.
Okay. This comment is from BBLZ, and that last track sounds like Sweet Blank Alabama.
Yeah, it does. Yep. That's exactly what they use. Mixolydian.
And a question from Farhan. Could you please show us where Mixolydian and Lydian played over an Ionian chord progression is not sounding appropriate?
Yeah.
Or other examples where inappropriate mode causing
Absolutely.
problems? Thanks.
Okay, that's a great question. So let's go to the Ionian track. I'm going to play Lydian first. Yuck. If I just played a scale. You might be able to like shoehorn it in with special bends or phrases or something, but it just, over a straight Ionian, that sounds awful. Now we'll play Mixolydian. Over the 5 chord is where it really starts sounding weird. So remember I said earlier, you might get away with playing Mixolydian in parts over this, but when it goes to the 5, it's a little weird. If you were being artistic, you could throw that flat 7 in every once in a while if you wanted to start being a little bluesy. You could also throw in that minor major third over this. It's not really a bluesy progression, and I think it sounds better to not do this, but people do it over major progressions, and it sounds good. You just have to be careful. But in this case, you're still not playing Mixolydian. You're not playing in the Mixolydian mode. You're still wanting to play in the Ionian mode, and then every once in a while you're going to throw in an accidental. You're going to throw in a flat 7 to make it sound bluesy, or you'd throw in a flat 5 to make it sound bluesy. But you're not playing in a Mixolydian mode if you're doing it right. So listen to this. So there, I actually went to minor pentatonic, which includes the flat 3rd and the flat 7. But I did it in a strategic place so as to not just sound like I didn't know what I was doing. If I would play minor pentatonic over that the whole time, or Mixolydian over it the whole time, you get that rub when you go to certain chords. So it's all about being conscious of what your key tones are and where to put them. You can break rules all day long as you're being tasteful and you know what you're doing. But if I had $100 for every time I heard a guitar player do this, that sounds wrong. if that's all you're doing, it doesn't sound right. If you do that a little bit with real major scale in there, so there, we stuck to mainly major, and then on that last turnaround from 5 to 1, we threw in the blues. We went to Mixolydian we threw in the flatted 7 and the flatted 3rd, and there just a little bit to give it some grunt, and give it some, but we're not in the Mixolydian mode. We're throwing in those, we're borrowing maybe from a modal sound for just a minute, which is totally okay, as long as you're intentional about it, and as long as you don't just go, and you heard with Lydian how bad it was. And you'll hear with the basically minor modes next week how bad it is when you, like, for example, when you play in natural minor when it's clearly a Dorian progression. It sounds almost as bad as Lydian over a major key. So I hope that was beneficial to hear that. Let's take more.
A couple more comments here.
Yeah.
Talos 175. So much of my own attempts to work out songs for myself and getting confused from CDs is now falling into place.
Yay!
Yay.
That's what we like to hear.
And then a comment from G. Harrington. I can see the trees, memorize the 7 patterns, grasp the keys and major minor chord structure, memorized all, awaiting the light bulb to go on to play the forest modally. Hopefully woodshedding with the tracks will light the bulb.
Yeah, I think it will. You've got the tools. It's just a matter of going in and experiencing it. And I can't stress enough the power of your voice, even if you're not a singer. Just being able to hear. I mean, once you get the patterns down, you can see as I'm going through stuff. I'm maybe using patterns a little bit, but I'm not sticking to one pattern. I'm moving from pattern to pattern. I'm moving all over the neck. Because I'm choosing notes over patterns. The patterns are merely vehicles to getting there. And once you understand the flavor that you can add by being intentional about the notes you play, it's just fun.
And we have a question about your tone.
Yeah.
Would you like to answer that right now?
Sure.
Okay. Love the tone of Chris's guitar today. Is that an 11-rack preset? I know
No,
the
Sean,
answer,
it is actually, I'm using bias effects, BIAS effects. And I just built this preset last week. Actually, I've been using it for the whole mode series, I think. I'm using the modded Plexi. You can plug in an HDMI cable and you just see it. But I'm using a modded Plexi with mostly the knobs straight up and down. The gain is at 11 o'clock. The bass is at 10 o'clock. Mid is at noon. Treble is at 11. Presence is at 9 o'clock. So I'm the raw. The raw amp sounds like this with nothing on it. To help you build a tone. And then I've got a boost pedal that's in the very front of the chain, giving me a little bit more. It's a treble booster. Here it is without the treble booster. Actually sounds like it has more treble without the treble booster, but this is giving me more level, more girth. And then after that, I've got a Tube Screamer clone that has the drive almost all the way up and the level up at around 1 o'clock. So here it is, just the boost. Here's the Tube Screamer. And then I've got my tone knob, when I was playing earlier, I had it about 6, all the way back. And then I've got an EQ right after the amp. That's been in the whole time, actually. It's boosting 800 hertz just a little bit. Here it is without it. Here it is with it. Subtle. A little more mids. And then I've got a delay, simple delay set at, not a time delay, about 200 milliseconds, mild feedback. Really nice milky tone, and just a tube screamer. Well, not just a tube screamer. And then finally I have a reverb pedal, which is mostly like the RV3 from Boss, although it's running in stereo because it's here. And that is on a chamber setting, but it's short short feedback. If I turn the delay off, not feedback, decay, you can hear that. That's a nice round texture to it. So all together, we have this. I think the key, what makes it so fun and like good to dig into, is that I'm using my treble pickup, but I've got the tone knob rolled down to about half. And what's interesting about something like this is, I'm not it's fairly gainy, but I'm not using anything. I guess the tube screamer's all the way up, but the tube screamer by nature doesn't sound like that. It takes those other things to kind of come around it and make it work. So. And I build all my tones. I don't use presets at all. I mean, I built this preset, so I'm using this preset. So technically, I'm using a preset. But I don't go in and like with this. There's tons of. If you go in and I have a whole series about this already. But if you go into the presets and you see this amp and this coupled with this amp and there's 14 effects afterward, and then you play it and then it you don't even know what to like. Where did that come from? Why is there so much crap in the chain? So I like to start with just a clean sound and then build on it from there. Adding little bits depending on what I'm doing. What am I doing? And that's going to show me what I need. If that makes any sense.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions here, a little in-depth questions.
Yeah.
First one's from BVLZ. I'm learning a solo where the chords are D minor or D minor 9, B flat, and C. It matches to D Aeolian. I would expect A minor somewhere, but there are A augmented A just before going back to D minor. I am puzzled. It does not fit into the chord transposition table.
Very good question. Okay, let's make this work. You're perfectly segueing because we're going to make up chord progressions now anyway. D minor 9. We'll just call it D minor for now. To a B flat. There is an A augmented just before going back to the D minor. So we've got an A augmented. This is neat. This is really, really cool stuff. We have A minor, or D minor, so minor 1, 6, 7. Now, yes, that would be straight minor if it went there. See. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're borrowing from harmonic minor, which is technically not a mode, it's a variation on the major scale. What you can do here, because we've got this in there, you can think of this as D. You could think of it even as A major. You could think of it as A major. But what you've got here is you've got a seventh, a major 7 there, and a harmonic minor scale. I played that in A. I should be playing it in D. There it is. There's your C sharp. So if I were going to solo over this, let's just record this real quick. Okay, give me a minute to set up the loop. That should do it. And dupe that. And put my fun drive in. Sound right. Here's what we're gonna do. Okay, here we go. What's my key tone there? It's this note. Okay, so literally exactly what I was thinking was this. Minor straight Aeolian frenzy, build melody, make it sound cool, and then when that A augmented chord rolls around, capitalize on that note. That one note that makes it different, and come up with a melody. Make it happen that way. I hope that answered your question. We are in the Aeolian mode, but there's an accidental in there. This happens all the time. All the time. Hardly any real music is like straight mode. And this is part of why we're studying this stuff, though, is simply studying the modes and the key tones helps you hone in on these things and build them into your playing. Great question. I couldn't have thought of a better question. Awesome job.
Okay. Got a couple more here.
Okay.
This one's from Inblaze. Is there a quick way of identifying the modes to play over top of the progression, or is that just more and more practice over time? Also, when you play in the key of something, how can we refer to the tonal center for our interval numbers instead of the key we are playing out of? Does this make sense? Sorry if this is elementary.
No, it's a great question. Leave that question up. There's a couple of parts here. Is there a quick way of identifying modes to play over the top of the progression? So at the beginning of this hour here, we did the first part of your progression. We listened to the progression. We went, okay, it's about, let's go back to the key transposition table real quick. It's about identifying, like, okay, is the chord progression going 1 to 2? Is the 2 major? Oh, let's look at the transposition table. Well, it's 1 to 2. We know that's a 1 to major 2. We know that's a fourth, that's a Lydian, right? Because the only place you see a major 1 to major 2 would be from the 4 to the 5. So if we call the 4 the 1, we have a 1 to 2. That's how you do that. You take the chord progression and you see that, and we spent a little over an hour on this the last session. So number 3, week 3, we did exactly what you're talking about. So if what I said sounds like a different language, go back and listen and watch week 3, and you'll have a lot of different examples. We went through every mode, and we talked about the key characteristics from a chord perspective of each mode. Go back to the question, please. Or is that just more? It does take practice. It takes a lot of time to memorize it, but going over week 3 will really be helpful. Also, when you play in the key of something, how come we refer to the tonal center over the actual key we are playing out of? This is because the tonal center, let's take C Lydian, for example. Let's go back to the key transposition table. We're going to play in C Lydian. But C Lydian is the 4th mode of a G major scale. If we play G major, meaning we focus on the G note when we're playing in C Mixolydian, this is review for some of you, but I'll go. Okay, so here's C Lydian. Well, here's C Lydian. No, that's not C Lydian. Here's C Lydian. Now, if I play G major, if I just play regular G major, doesn't work. I mean, it works, it's the right notes, but we haven't capitalized on what makes it Lydian, which is the key tone, which we went over in, you really got to see the first 3 weeks. We went over the key tones of each mode. In this case, we're in the key of G, but our tonal center is C, so we're in C Lydian. So we're emphasizing the sharp 4 of C Lydian, which would be F sharp, the notes F sharp, and then we're also emphasizing a 7, which is B. So the notes F sharp and B are what, F sharp, B, and C, if we emphasize those 3 notes while playing over a C Lydian progression, it's going to sound more Lydian rather than just a bunch of scales in the key of G with a C tonal center. I hope that makes sense. But I encourage you strongly, if you haven't gone back to watch weeks 1, 2, and 3, it's almost like you asked a question from week 1, week 2, and week 3 in there. But I hope that gives you a good starting point, at least, to some of the answers.
Okay, and we got one more here from Terry S. I do not have the ear that you have. Were the degrees of the scale you were calling out the melody notes in the Lydian scale for the track, or chord changes?
They were the melody. They were the key tones, the key notes that I wanted to play and emphasize as I was going through stuff. You say I don't have the ear that you have. The ear that I have is developed largely from singing. It's not from playing. It's from singing. It's from being able to hear a note, react with my voice, and then that goes, it's like plugged into the guitar. My voice, my ear guides my voice, which guides my guitar. And you don't have to be a good singer to do that. You just have to be able to connect those. So, there we go.
Okay, I think that's going to do it.
Cool. It's been an awesome session, guys. Let's go over just a couple progressions here. Actually, let's do this. We had such a great example of something earlier. Anybody else have a progression to throw out? Give me a progression, and we'll call it what it is, modally. Or we might find some weird exception. I think that's a better idea than just simply making up more chord progressions. And if we don't get to some of these today, you guys could come prepared next week to do the same thing. I like that idea. I like the idea of you guys providing the progressions, which I think is, I originally said that in the intro to this course anyway. Key transposition table. Thank you. Interesting. I have... Oh, I don't have the drive there. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so we've got... We came up with one earlier that was... it was C Lydian, but it was going... I'm going to record that one while I'm waiting.
Got one here.
Okay.
Couple here, actually.
Oh, really? Okay, well, screw that. We already did this one, so I'll delete all of these, and we'll turn off multi-take recording, first of all, or turn that off. Replace. There we go. Okay, let's see them.
There's the first one.
D, B minor, G, A. All right, let's go to the key transposition table. We'll start with 1, D, key of D. We got D, and 6, B minor, G, 4, 5, A. So that's straight D major. Straight D major for that one. And I'm going to turn off my delay here. There we go. So play in time with the track. Loop this out a bit. Yeah, straight D major on that one. Good one.
Okay, next one.
G to C minor, okay. Let's see if it fits in the key transposition table at all. Major 1 to C minor. Well, it's not Ionian, so we need to go to another. We got a G. It's not Mixolydian, and it's not Lydian. Although we have if we go to G Lydian, we have C sharp diminished. No, that's not right either. It does not fit anywhere in the key transposition table. Does that mean it's not modal? Let's record it, because whether it's modal or not, you have to be able to react to it, right? So I'm going to record it. Here we go. We'll do that. I want that one to be slower. You know, I just realized what I was doing. I was playing a G5 there. We want to make sure we're playing a G major. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's loop that. This, and loop endlessly. Okay. Here we go. It's major 1, so let's see what happens if we play G major over it. So that doesn't work. It works over the G, obviously, and it's that note, right? It's that one. It's the E. So E in C minor, we've got an E flat. So we're not necessarily going to need to think about this modally as much as we are like we did with the chord progression that the last guy brought up. Over the C, we can play this. G, A, B, C, D. Essentially what we're going to be doing is combining two scales here. Because these notes, this is an F, E, F, G. So we're essentially going to be playing you could play a G major scale until you get to here. Let me think about this real quick. I don't know if that'll work. Okay, so here's how I'm thinking about it in perfectly blunt honesty. I'm thinking G major, C minor, and then I'm tying them together melodically. I'm having to separate it that much. I'm choosing each chord, and that's going to be a common thing. But I want to encourage you that in learning modes, in learning how to think this way, and then bringing up chord progressions that don't necessarily fit in this box, this is actually a good thing because it's accomplishing what we want to accomplish anyway, training your ear. Whether it fits perfectly in a modal box or not, and we're going to get into more of that in weeks to come, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is we're choosing key tones, we're reacting to a chord progression using key tones. That's what we want to keep in the forefront of our minds. Great chord progression. Next.
There's the next one.
Okay, and this will be the last one for the night. We'll pick up here next week. That is straight C major. It starts here on A, so you'd think, oh, maybe that's A minor. And you could sort of think about it that way, but it seems to rest well on that C, at least the way I'm playing it. It may not be that way. If I were to record it like this, let's speed this up. Speed this back up here. That's not what you asked for at all. Could I see the chord progression again? It seems to land nicely on the C. The good news is that A minor and C major are the same scale, right? It depends on how you want to emphasize the notes. So you could look at it as an A minor if you wanted to, but let's just see. I'll demonstrate thinking of it as C major versus thinking of it as A minor. Here's me thinking of it as A minor. We'll see. I guess I'm not convinced which one will sound better. Okay, that's mainly me approaching it from A minor. Now here, let's try C. Although I will emphasize A minor on the A minor chord. Oh, that was recorded. We don't want that. No. Yeah. So there's me emphasizing C. I don't know. I think they both sound great. It's really in a typical Ionian progression. If there is the minor note in there, it's kind of fun to shift tonal centers in your soloing perspective. You know, the first one I was very, very intentional about targeting that A. The second one I was very intentional about targeting C. I feel like the C was liftier. You could go back and forth. You know. So even a straight Ionian chord progression you can have a lot of fun with, slanting it one way or the other with the way you choose to emphasize those key tones. Great, great session tonight. This was awesome. This might be my favorite live event ever. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for contributing the chord progressions. Let's pick up right here, emphasizing the minor progressions more next week. We'll see you guys then.